All right, guys. So we got to talk about this clip that is going viral of Elon Musk just absolutely destroying this BBC reporter in this interview, in which this BBC reporter is going to complain about hate speech on Twitter. There's so much hate speech on Twitter. Oh my God, it's not safe for the LGBTQ, black, and all these other minority communities and women. It's not safe. Right? You know what the mainstream little media says, right? You know what they say about Twitter, okay? Now, hey, I understand. Both sides are not happy with Twitter, okay? Conservatives are not happy with Twitter because they don't feel like Elon Musk is allowing enough speech from our side of the aisle. And liberals are upset because they feel like Elon Musk is not censoring enough, okay? They feel like he should be censoring conservatives more. And people that they deem to be hateful more. So again, nobody's really happy with the new Twitter. But Elon Musk, I think has done a good job in my opinion. I think it's definitely better than the old Twitter. And there are going to be bugs. There are going to be setbacks. There are going to be problems. But that's what happens when you take over a company, okay? And you're trying to take it to the next level. Things are going to happen, okay? They're going to be pain points, okay? So I actually want to go ahead and get into this because, again, Elon Musk is going to destroy this guy to his face, and it is absolutely glorious.
I would only just add that, we have spoken to people who have been sacked that used to be in content moderation, and we've spoken to people very recently who were involved in moderation, and they just say there's not enough people to police this stuff, particularly around hate speech in the company.
Is that what hate speech are you talking about? I mean, you use Twitter.
Right.
Do you see a rise in hate speech?
I mean,
but just a personal anecdote. Like, what do you? I don't.
Personally, my for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content. Yeah, personally. But I'm not going to talk to the rest of for the rest of Twitter.
So you see more hate speech personally?
I would say I would see more hateful content in that
content.
Yeah. So again, my question is, what do you define as hateful content? Because I guarantee you he's probably thinking, well, I see more content that I disagree with politically, right? Which to them would be defined as hateful. Or somebody saying that, biological women are women, or that trans women are not women, or something like that. They would define that as hateful, right? That's the definition of hate speech. Anything they disagree with politically.
You don't like or hateful? What do you mean to describe a hateful thing?
Yeah, I mean, just content that will solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
Yeah, so I told you guys, slightly racist, slightly sexist, right? Which again, basically is anything that they disagree with, right? Anything they disagree with is slightly racist, slightly sexist, and keep in mind, he said slightly, right? So therefore, he's implying that it should be banned. Okay, that it should be censored, that it should be moderated just because it's slightly racist or slightly sexist. This is what he said he's saying on his timeline, and it should be banned. Amazing.
You think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything.
I'm just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content. And I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, you've asked me whether my feed, whether it's got less or more. I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for examples. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I
don't. You can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore. Because I just don't particularly like it.
But you
and
said
actually, a lot of people are quite similar. I only look at
hang on a second.
following.
You said you've seen more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks,
Yeah. So again, this is the cop out here. The cop out is that, well, I don't use that anymore, right? It's so bad I don't use that feed anymore. But trust me, there's so much hateful content up there. So much hateful content. I can't name anything. I can't name one example of hateful content that I've seen. But trust me, there's hateful content. There is hateful content on Twitter, okay? And it's so hateful, I don't get up there anymore. That's why I can't give you an example. Wow, this guy is getting embarrassed.
Well, then how did you see that hateful content?
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen for you hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
Then I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet.
Wow.
And yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's a false.
no. What I claimed,
You just lied.
What I claimed was
Exactly.
There are many organizations that say that that kind of information is on the rise. Now,
But you just said that you saw on your own personal Twitter feed slightly racist, slightly sexist content is is hate speech. And you're saying that on your Twitter feed. This guy went from, well, I don't really use that Twitter feed anymore, after being called out about, okay, well, what's an example of that, right? Or do you think that slightly racist or sexist content should be banned? He went from, yeah, I don't really get on my Twitter feed anymore, to, well, you know, all I'm saying is that others say that, right? Others say that is hateful and racist and sexist or whatever.
whether it has on my
Give me
feed
one
or
example.
not. I mean, right, and
Literally
you can
can't
look at
name
something
one.
like the Strategic Dialogue Institute in the UK. They will say that. So
Look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a
Right.
single example, and you can't name one.
right, and as I already said, I don't use that feed. But
Well, then how would you know that?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content, and then couldn't name a single example.
Right, and as I said,
That's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how
say,
would you
for a
know this
few
hateful
weeks.
content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks ago. I can't give you an exact example. Let's move on. We only have a certain amount of time.
Let's move on. All right, let's move on. Because he can't name an example of any hateful content that he's seen on Twitter, even though he's claiming, screaming at the top of his lungs, that the content on Twitter is so hateful. Again, this is what the mainstream liberal media does. They just make these claims, but they don't have any facts or evidence to back it up. Okay, they have no examples whatsoever to back up these claims that Twitter is so hateful, right? Again, it's just absolutely ridiculous. This interview is just, wow, this is embarrassing for the BBC. It really is.
Wow.
COVID misinformation. You
Amazing.
changed the COVID misinformation
Has
rules.
BBC changed its COVID misinformation?
The BBC does not set the rules on Twitter, so I'm asking you.
No, I'm talking about the BBC's misinformation about COVID.
I'm literally asking you about, you changed the labels, the COVID misinformation labels. There used to be a policy, it then disappeared. Why do that?
Well, COVID is no longer an issue. Does the BBC hold itself at all responsible for misinformation regarding masking and side effects of vaccinations? And not reporting on that at all? And what about the fact that the BBC was put under pressure by the British government to change its editorial policy? Are you aware of that?
This is not an interview about the BBC.
Oh, you thought it wasn't?
I see now why you've done Twitter Spaces. I am not a representative of the BBC's editorial policy. I want to make that clear. Let's talk about something else. You want to
I'm
talk about the
interviewing you
BBC?
too.
All right, let's talk about something
Dude,
else.
oh
weren't
my
expecting
God.
that.
Let's talk
Every
about something
time
else.
this man gets hammered, every time he gets hammered, right? He gets slammed. He's like, let's talk about something else. Let's move on to something else. Let's move on to something else. He don't want to talk about it. Now Elon Musk is trolling this man. He's dancing on his grave on Twitter, saying penetrating deep and hard with the BBC. Yo, this guy Elon is a troll. And then he retweeted this question right here. Question of the year, do you like BBC? Yes or no? Wow. Yeah. So, again, this is why I say that a lot of these journalists, these so-called journalists, their profession has taken a hit from a respectability standpoint in society because of stuff like this. Because when you actually put them under the microscope and you question them about some of the things that they constantly report on, the stuff that they peddle as facts, and you actually really question them on, hey, where do you see the actual hate speech on Twitter? Where's the actual hate speech on Twitter? Right? The things that these guys report on, okay, the propaganda that they spew, they have nothing, right? He can't name one example of hate speech that is on Twitter that he's seen. Can't name one example. Didn't want to answer any questions about the BBC's own COVID misinformation policy, right? And all the misinformation and propaganda that they were spewing. The reason why COVID shouldn't be moderated or you shouldn't have some type of censorship for COVID misinformation is because the information about COVID has been changing. It's been changing ever since we discovered the virus, right? It's been changing ever since we discovered the virus. So why even moderate it? Because what's true today probably is going to be false tomorrow, and what's false today is probably going to be true the next day. That has been basically the COVID information in a nutshell since we discovered the virus. But they don't want to acknowledge that, hey, you know what? The science evolved and we were wrong, right? They don't want to acknowledge that. They rather sit on their high horse and pretend like they get everything right. That everything that comes out of BBC or the New York Times or, you know, the Washington Post or whatever, we're right. Because we're journalists. We're legit. Everybody else is wrong. Even when they're wrong. And they don't have any facts to actually back up their claim. So, again, Elon Musk, that was glorious. That was absolutely glorious. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.